Over the past 2 years, my D7000 has been showing its age. Since I started in food photography over 6 years ago, it has been my A-cam for all my shoots. Over time, my skills improved, my clients' requirements changed, and publishing platforms diverged, and so on. The D7000 quickly became a limitation. So for the last 2 years, I have been renting the Canon 5D Mark III and subsequently Mark IV when it released, along with lenses to go with it. My favorite kit for this purpose was the Art series from Sigma, undoubtedly the best set of lenses you can get in my opinion. However, I did get tired of renting these for two simple reasons. Number one, availability was never guaranteed. Sometimes when the gear was unavailable, I had to push dates around to make sure that they aligned when the gear was available, and this left my clients disappointed sometimes, never a good thing. And number two, sometimes on set, the rental equipment used to stop functioning and we would lose out an entire day. So it was certainly time for me to jump on a modern system of my own. I evaluated systems from Nikon, namely the 750 and 850D, and offerings from Canon as well, like the 5D Mark IV and the 1DX Mark II. But ultimately, I did end up settling with Sony. At a point, I even did consider medium format cameras, but right now, it is very hard for me to justify the cost for the lenses and all of the gear that goes with it. Enter the Sony A7 Mark III, or simply the Sony A7 III. So let me quickly explain my choice here. The Sony A7 III uses the Sony E-mount lenses, and both Metabones and Sigma offer adapters to adapt EF or Nikon lenses to this, I believe. I'm not sure about Nikon lenses, but the MC11 does adapt Canon EF lenses to the Sony E-mount. Now both of these offer unique advantages over each other. However, I did go with the Sigma MC11 for a simple reason. I do plan to invest in the Sigma Art series glass, and I can use those lenses on both my Ursa Mini, which I'm using to record this video right now, and the A7 III. Alright, back to the camera. This houses a full-frame 24.2 megapixel backlit sensor which is stabilized. The sensor boasts a whopping 14.7 stops of dynamic range at its native ISO, and it holds it above a respectable 12 stops up to ISO 400. It falls below 10 stops between the 1600 to 3200 range. Color sensitivity stays within respectable ranges up to ISO 3200. Above ISO 3200, it really begins to degrade, so let's treat ISO 3200 as a hard stop for us to work with. Now, before we proceed with discussing photos and videos, I want to quickly talk about my choice of lens here. The MC11 adapter, which I mentioned earlier, is simply an adapter. There are no glass elements in there like focal reducers or the like, so it's not going to change the amount of light coming in or any of that. It's just going to simply adapt EF lenses to E-mounts. However, I'm pretty sure people are going to come up with ways to shimmy one in there anyways, because there are clearly slots in there for such glass elements. So the very first lens I decided to pair with this camera is the Sigma 35mm f1.4 art lens. Now this is an incredible lens rated at t1.5 and produces great sharpness at f1.4, 1.8 and 2.0. So you don't really have a need to really stop this lens down, and pairing it with the camera's exceptional low light sensitivity ratings, these two make a great pair. Also, the 35mm allows me to have a great walking around lens, as well as being able to use it for my food photography work. And as always, I can always rent other lenses for now, like the 50mm and the 85mm. Now this lens paired with the MC11 adapter provides full lens data, iris control, incredible autofocus performance after it has been upgraded to the latest firmware, and you'll see the autofocus performance later in this video when we move into the video section. One odd thing I did notice in the camera after immediately picking it up is that it really loves its greens, so it tends to heavily move towards the greens and not so much towards the blues and reds, where the reds really suffer. But nothing really major here. I'm going to assume that this is only with my camera, the sensor on my camera, and this may not be the case with your camera, and it is very easily fixable using a picture profile. So not a big deal, but just something to be aware of. So let's get to the meat of this video, probably what most of y'all are here for, the photos. And no doubt this is a great performer in the right hands. The 14.7 stops of dynamic range come in very handy even for food photography, and the light roll off is absolutely gorgeous, as you can see. The compactness of this camera is usually going to have it be underestimated by some, but let me assure you there is no reason to do so. That was my fault. You shouldn't be doing that after watching this video. But what's really fascinating is that this camera allows me to do this. So that's really cool, and it enables me to do kind of this. No other camera I've evaluated was capable of this. Sure, 5 to 6 shots at most, but that meant multiple retakes, and most of the time this isn't really feasible because a lot of the ingredients these chefs use take a lot of prep time or aren't easily available, or there's very little limited quantities of it. Sometimes we have to use smoke effects and the like using dry ice. So having a camera that can pull this off is really helpful. Taking this camera outside on the streets exposes a very different personality of this camera. Most non-photographers are accustomed now to seeing big DSLRs and huge lenses around people's necks or in their hands, and because this is so compact, and especially if you use native E-mount lenses, the whole system gets very small, and most people are going to turn a blind eye to the camera you have around you because they may think it's a point and shoot and it's not a big deal, but they are mistaken. It's notable that this camera is not only a great street performer but also an excellent landscape performer. I had the opportunity to pair this camera with the Carl Zeiss Compact Primes 0.2, and I had a blast with those lenses on this camera. Here's a quick few shots taken with the 25mm T3.1, I believe it is, but whatever the case is, just have a look at these photos. I really love them. I hope you guys enjoy them too. Now on the 25mm T2.5, you notice the massive distortion the full frame sensor enables here, but it feels nice. It doesn't feel wrong. I haven't corrected anything and yet it feels nice. Now, I'm not the one to get a CP2 lens every time I go out walking for street photography or the like, but if you have the opportunity, do definitely try those lenses on this camera. And as you'll notice on all of the outdoor shots that the edges are a lot more softer than the center, and this is nothing to do with the lenses. I tested this with a variety of lenses across a variety of f-stops, and I am inclined to conclude that that's just how the Sony sensor likes this, and I'm really fine with this because it really does not reproduce the same effect when I'm indoors shooting food. Alright, change scene. Unfortunately the card I'm recording on got full, so I had to do the whole copy the data, format it, and put it back in the camera. But let's get back. Alright, so let's talk about video on this camera. For video, this camera is really pushing the boundaries of what is possible on a $200 camera system. It can shoot Rec 2020 HLG in the S-Log 3 picture profile, which is just incredible. However, do note that the data rates aren't that high. So if you're considering using this in a production quality environment, I would highly recommend you to look elsewhere as long as you're, in like coloring and grading everything for the Rec 2020 profile. However, if you're going to shoot in Rec 2020, come down to Rec 709 for whatever reason, it should be perfectly fine. For regular Rec 709 primaries, you can also shoot using the S-Log 3 profile or any of the other various built-in picture profiles, or set up your own custom ones. Now do remember that if you want to shoot in S-Log 3 on this camera, you will have to edit one of the custom profiles and set it up accordingly. Now I have bound my custom function 3 button to allow me to quickly change between picture profiles when I'm out and about, and that comes in very handy when shooting video. However, I'll come to the video part for my end towards later in this video. Technical details aside, the in-body stabilization on this camera is really cool, and it is very effective. As you can see, the 35mm lens that I have on this camera does not have in-body stabilization, so the camera's in-body stabilization is the only system at work. Now, a little bit of footage stabilization in your favorite video editor is not going to hurt and will be actually useful, as you can see in this side-by-side comparison. You can also switch between full frame and APS-C modes on the camera. Now I have bound a custom function button on my camera for this purpose, and this also enables you to use DX or DC crop factor lenses on this camera for both video and photos. So quick look at the footage and the 6K downsampled. Yes, you heard that right. 6K downsampled to 4K footage looks great. The same 14.6 stops of dynamic range is observed at base ISO thanks to the no pixel binning or cropping of the sensor in video mode. The full pixel readout also makes the video sharper, and the downsampling adds to that. The post-processing that occurs on the camera, however, ensures that the footage isn't over-sharpened, and I love this tiny attention to detail from the A7 III engineers, so a big thank you for that. The XAVC codec has never been my favorite and will likely never be. So anytime I ingest this footage onto my workstation, I immediately transcode it to ProRes and create proxies for me to work with in Final Cut Pro. And that allows me and enables me to have a much more optimized workflow on macOS. Also, a very key thing to remember is that if you're shooting an S-Log3, the grading process for this footage is much simpler in Resolve 14 than it is on FCP 10.4.1, so that is a key thing to remember. It'll just be a little more trickier and more difficult, more time consuming in FCP than in Resolve. So if you are planning to shoot on S-Log3, maybe consider getting a copy of Resolve. There are plenty of S-Log3 to Rec 709 or Rec 2020 LUTs available out there. Pick whichever one works for you and just go with it, as long as the colors look nice, rich, or the colors that you want for the kind of project you're working on are coming out there, or just go ahead and create your own. Grading S-Log3 footage, however, for me has proven to be very difficult. Now, I have been doing this for the past 3 years professionally, and it still overwhelmed me by how complicated the process is. So what I've done is created my own LUTs, which will take the S-Log3 footage to the Rec 709 and Rec 2020 primaries in PG, and what they'll give me is a base to work on top of. Now, considering that the data rates aren't very high, I don't have a lot of flexibility here, but you just gotta make it work. So to conclude the video section of this review, I'd like to say that the A7 III is a fantastic video camera. However, its a small battery and the overheating issue that plagues it is going to prevent it from becoming my A camera on set. The Ursa Mini that I'm recording on right now is still going to continue to be my A cam no matter where I go. So some final thoughts here. I primarily bought this camera for my photography work. It shoots great video. However, it's not going to be my A cam anytime soon. However, there may be situations where that is the only camera I can take in, and in those situations alone is it going to be my A cam for videos. But as for photos, it is certainly my new A cam, and my D7000 is going to retire to becoming the B cam, and I can finally deprecate the very old Nikon D60. So if you want to see any of these photos in full resolution, head over to my Flickr profile. The link for that is down in the description. Out there, I'll also include my affiliate links to buy the Sony A7 III, the MC11 adapter, the Sigma 35mm f1.4 art, and a link to the LUTs I was speaking of. So there you have it, guys. This is the A7 III review. I hope you guys liked it. Let me know how you like the 2:1 aspect ratio. Does that work for you? Does it not work for you? And whatever other thoughts you may have, let's chat in the comments section. If you like this review, hit the like button. If you disliked it, you know what to do. Leave me a comment and tell me what you disliked about the review. And if you're new around here, don't forget to subscribe. I will see you in the next video. Cheers.